In a world that constantly demands your attention, your privacy is your last line of defense. Have you ever noticed how revealing too much weakens you? How the more people know about your plans, struggles, or personal life, the more opinions, doubts, and distractions flood in. We live in an era where oversharing is the norm, where social media glorifies exposure, and where people feel entitled to your thoughts, emotions, and decisions. But the Stoics knew better. Marcus Aurelius, a man who ruled over millions, yet lived with a deep sense of inner peace, once said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." What you let into your mind, who you allow access to your deepest intentions, shapes your reality. Not everyone should have a window into your life. True power lies in knowing what to reveal and what to keep in silence. Think about it. Have you ever shared an exciting goal only to feel your motivation disappear when met with skepticism? Have you ever opened up about a struggle only to have it thrown back at you later? Your privacy is your protection. Today, we'll explore 9 things you should keep private in 2025, according to Stoic wisdom. Mastering this will not only give you more clarity, focus, and strength, but it will also protect you from unnecessary drama, external control, and mental exhaustion. Stay with me until the end, because what you'll learn today will change how you approach life forever. Before we dive in, comment below. I choose power over exposure. Let's begin. 1. Future plans and personal goals. Our ambitions and goals should be guarded like a fortress protecting its greatest treasure. In a world where opinions are freely given, often without care, revealing your dreams too soon exposes them to doubt, jealousy, and external pressure. How many times have you shared a goal only to be met with skepticism or unsolicited advice? The moment your plans become public, they are no longer yours alone. They become subject to others' expectations, their fears, their judgments, adding unnecessary weight to your journey. Epictetus once said, "If you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." True growth often appears invisible to the outside world. When you share your dreams too soon, you invite doubt, not just from others, but within yourself. Even well-meaning advice can plant seeds of uncertainty. What once felt achievable can suddenly seem impossible, not because it is, but because someone else made you question it. Take Alex, a young entrepreneur with a groundbreaking idea. Eager and excited, he shared it with friends, expecting encouragement. Instead, he was met with hesitation. "That's too risky. What if you fail?" At first, he dismissed their concerns, but as days passed, their words echoed in his mind, eroding his confidence. He hesitated, then delayed. Eventually, he abandoned the idea entirely. A year later, he watched someone else succeed with the very concept he had once believed in. This is why history's greatest minds worked in silence before revealing their successes. Edison didn't announce every experiment before perfecting the light bulb. J.K. Rowling shielded Harry Potter from scrutiny until it was ready. Even Marcus Aurelius, ruling one of the greatest empires, kept his most profound thoughts private. Why? Because they understood. A plan nurtured in silence is far more likely to succeed than one exposed to premature judgment. But why do we feel the urge to share in the first place? Validation. A subconscious craving for approval, reassurance, or recognition. We want to be seen, supported, and celebrated, sometimes before we've even begun. But Marcus Aurelius warned, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Stop seeking recognition. Just do the work." The fulfillment of achieving your goal should outweigh the fleeting satisfaction of announcing it. Have you ever felt pressure after sharing your plans? Maybe you told someone about a fitness goal and suddenly felt like you had to perform for their expectations. Or you shared a career ambition, only to be bombarded with advice you never asked for. Social media has conditioned us to announce our goals as if saying them out loud is enough. But the Stoics teach the opposite. Work in silence. Let your results speak for themselves. If your goal is fragile enough to be shaken by doubt, it needs more time to develop. Protect it. Nurture it with discipline. Share only when necessary. This isn't secrecy, it's self-mastery. So, here's a challenge. The next time you set a major goal, resist the urge to broadcast it. Instead, write it down. Develop a plan. Take action without seeking approval. And when you achieve it, let your success be the only announcement you ever need. If you're ready to commit to this Stoic principle, comment below. I choose to protect my goals and let my actions speak. Let's make 2025 the year of silent, unstoppable progress. 2. Income and financial status. Money is a double-edged sword. It has the power to provide security, freedom, and opportunity, yet it also attracts envy, judgment, and unwarranted attention. In a world obsessed with status and comparison, discussing your financial situation too openly can do more harm than good. The Stoics understood that true wealth is not in how much you have, but in how little you need. Epictetus once said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." Yet, modern society teaches the opposite. The moment you disclose your income, your savings, or your financial status, you become a subject of speculation, either admired, envied, or underestimated. Imagine you receive a significant raise at work. Excited, you share the news with a group of friends, expecting celebration. But instead of happiness, you notice subtle shifts in their behavior. Some make sarcastic remarks. "Wow, must be nice to afford anything you want now." Others start treating you differently, either expecting you to cover their expenses or assuming you've outgrown them. Suddenly, your financial milestone, which should have been a personal victory, becomes a social burden. You are now seen through the lens of your wealth rather than your character. On the other hand, revealing financial struggles can be equally damaging. Suppose you confide in a colleague about your difficulties paying off debt. What begins as a private admission turns into quiet whispers in the office. You start noticing sympathetic glances, as if you are now defined by your financial hardship. What was once a neutral interaction now carries an unspoken judgment. People assume, they speculate, and worst of all, they treat you differently. This is why Marcus Aurelius advised, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, who is poor." True financial power comes not from what others think of your wealth, but from your ability to maintain control over it, both in numbers and in perception. Consider the story of Daniel, an entrepreneur who learned this lesson the hard way. After years of struggling, his business finally took off, bringing in substantial income. Excited and proud, he began sharing his success openly, discussing his new investments, upgraded lifestyle, and business growth. At first, it felt empowering, but soon he noticed something unsettling. People started asking for favors. Family members who once ignored him now came seeking loans. Some friends grew resentful, making passive-aggressive comments about how easy his life had become. Even casual acquaintances began treating him like a resource rather than a person. Over time, Daniel realized that his openness about money had changed how people saw him, not for who he was, but for what he had. The moment he stopped discussing his finances, the weight of expectation lifted. He reclaimed control over how he was perceived, not as a walking bank account, but as a person. But why do we feel the urge to disclose our financial situation in the first place? For some, it's a need for validation, to prove success, to gain admiration, to signal worth. For others, It's about seeking reassurance, to compare struggles, to find camaraderie in financial hardship. But Seneca reminds us, he is most powerful who has power over himself. The moment your financial reality becomes public, you lose control over how it is perceived. The solution? Keep it private. This doesn't mean being secretive or dishonest. It means practicing discernment. Not everyone needs to know how much you earn, how much you save, or how much you spend. Financial peace comes not from having more money, but from removing the unnecessary weight of public scrutiny. So, here's a challenge. For the next 30 days, resist the urge to discuss your financial situation with anyone outside your most trusted circle. Keep your successes to yourself. Handle your struggles in silence. Observe how it changes your relationship with money and with others. And if you agree with this Stoic principle, comment below, "I choose financial discretion." Let's commit to mastering our wealth, not just in numbers but in wisdom. 3. Romantic life and personal relationships. If money shapes how people perceive you, relationships magnify that effect even more. Love, intimacy, and personal connections should be sacred, yet in an era of oversharing, many treat their relationships like public spectacles. Every argument, every milestone, and every moment of affection is broadcasted as if validation from others makes love more real. But exposing your personal life invites unwanted interference, opinions, judgments, and expectations that can silently erode even the strongest bond. Seneca warned, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." This applies not only to fear, but also to how we let external voices influence our happiness. The more you allow others into your private life, the less control you have over it. A relationship should be built between two people, not two people and a chorus of opinions. How often have you seen couples torn apart, not by their own struggles, but by external noise? Friends offering unsolicited advice, family imposing expectations, or social media making them feel inadequate compared to curated online illusions. Consider Rachel and Mark. They were deeply in love, building a future together in quiet confidence. But when Rachel started sharing personal details, small disagreements, financial struggles, private doubts, outsiders began shaping her perspective. Friends warned her about red flags that weren't real. Family members, out of misplaced concern, questioned Mark's intentions. Over time, these voices planted seeds of doubt, making Rachel focus on flaws instead of strengths. Eventually, the relationship collapsed, not because of incompatibility, but because too many outside opinions diluted its foundation. But why do people overshare their relationships? Many seek validation, believing public affirmation makes love more secure. Yet, Marcus Aurelius reminds us, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." If your peace in a relationship depends on outside validation, it is not peace. It is insecurity masked as confidence. True strength lies in knowing your love does not need an audience. There's also the issue of overexposing challenges. Every relationship faces difficulties, misunderstandings, disagreements, moments of doubt. But venting to outsiders, especially those who don't share your emotional investment, can often lead to harm rather than resolution. Imagine a couple struggling through a rough patch. Instead of working through it together, one partner shares their frustrations with a friend without full context. That friend, out of loyalty, advises them to walk away rather than reconcile. What could have been a temporary misunderstanding now carries the weight of external pressure. Even worse, when couples share every beautiful moment, every anniversary post, every grand gesture, it creates an illusion of perfection they feel pressured to maintain. The world doesn't need to see your happiness to make it real. Some of the strongest relationships exist in quiet strength, built on mutual understanding rather than public display. Now, let's reflect. Have you ever shared too much about your relationship only to regret it? Perhaps you sought advice and realized it complicated things instead of helping. Or maybe you posted about your love life online and felt pressure to uphold an image rather than nurture the relationship itself. If so, you're not alone. Many have fallen into the trap of believing love must be seen to be real. Here's a challenge. For the next 30 days, keep your relationship private. Don't share problems with outsiders unless absolutely necessary. Don't seek validation through public declarations. Instead, strengthen the bond in real ways, through understanding, effort, and presence. If you agree, drop a comment below. I choose to protect my relationships. Let's commit to building love that is real, not performative. Fourth, acts of charity and good deeds. In a world where every act of kindness is often broadcasted for validation, the true essence of charity is at risk of being overshadowed by the need for recognition. We see it all the time, people posting their donations, sharing their volunteer work, or making sure the world knows about their generosity. But is kindness truly selfless when it is done with an audience in mind? The Stoics would argue that the highest form of virtue is one that requires no applause. True goodness is measured not by how many people witness it, but by the integrity with which it is carried out. Seneca once wrote, "The reward of a good deed is to have done it." In other words, the act itself should be the fulfillment, not the praise that follows. When charity becomes a performance, it loses its sincerity. If you donate to the less fortunate but ensure everyone knows about it, was it truly about helping others, or was it about feeding your own image? The moment you attach external validation to a virtuous act, you dilute its purity. The Stoics believed that a virtuous life was not about appearing good to others, but about being good when no one is watching. Imagine two people giving to charity. One donates quietly, never mentioning it to anyone, feeling a deep personal satisfaction in knowing they've contributed to something greater than themselves. The other loudly announces their donation, expecting praise, admiration, and public gratitude. While both technically performed an act of generosity, only one of them did it for the right reasons. The first person has mastered the art of internal virtue, while the second is merely trading money for social approval. Which of these truly embodies the Stoic principle of arete, excellence of character? We can look at historical figures who lived by this philosophy. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men in history, often gave generously but did not seek acknowledgement. He believed that virtue should be its own reward and that true strength lay in humility. He wrote, "Do not waste what remains of your life in speculating about others, unless it be with a view to some mutual benefit." This reminds us that when we act virtuously, it should be for the sake of the act itself, not to seek recognition or compare ourselves to others. But why do so many people feel the need to showcase their good deeds? In part, it is human nature to seek validation. Social media has amplified this tendency, creating an environment where people feel pressured to display their generosity for likes and approval. But the Stoics teach us to resist this urge, to act with integrity, not for external rewards. A quiet act of kindness is far more powerful than one that demands attention. If the intention is pure, there should be no need to announce it. This does not mean you should never speak about your good deeds. There are times when sharing kindness can inspire others. But the key difference lies in why you are sharing. Are you hoping to motivate someone else to do the same, or are you seeking personal recognition? The Stoic approach would be to let actions, not words, set an example. The most impactful forms of charity are those done without expectation. Take a moment to reflect. Have you ever done something good and felt the urge to tell others about it? Did it feel different when you kept it to yourself versus when you shared it publicly? Many people find that silent generosity carries a different kind of fulfillment, one that is deeper and more meaningful. The true test of virtue is whether you would still do the right thing if no one would ever find out. So, here's a challenge. The next time you do something kind, resist the urge to share it. Keep it private. Let the satisfaction come from within, not from external validation. And if this idea resonates with you, share your thoughts below. Do you believe that keeping acts of charity private is important? Drop a comment. I choose silent virtue, because the greatest kindness is the one that needs no audience. 5. Family conflicts and internal issues. Family matters should remain private, shielded from the unnecessary judgments, opinions, and interference of outsiders. Every family faces disagreements, misunderstandings, and tensions. This is a natural part of human relationships. However, the moment we expose these conflicts to the outside world, we relinquish control over them. Instead of resolution, we invite complication. The Stoics teach that true strength lies in maintaining inner peace, handling conflicts with wisdom rather than public validation. Some matters are best addressed behind closed doors, with patience, dignity, and respect. Imagine a man who constantly shares his frustrations about his family. Every argument, every disappointment, every unresolved issue becomes a public discussion. Instead of finding solutions, he accumulates opinions, some biased, some uninformed, some making things worse. The more he shares, the more entangled he becomes in a web of external perspectives, clouding his judgment. What should have been an intimate resolution turns into a spectacle. Eventually, trust within the family erodes, and the very relationships he sought to mend suffer further damage. Seneca emphasized the importance of restraint, stating, "He who has peace of mind disturbs neither himself nor another." Emotional reactions and public venting rarely lead to resolution. A disagreement within the family should not be an invitation for outside involvement, but an opportunity to practice patience and effective communication. Marcus Aurelius, too, understood this well. As emperor, he carried the weight of both political and personal conflicts, yet he never allowed external voices to dictate how he handled private matters. He reminded himself in meditations, "You always own the option of having no opinion." Not every issue needs analysis or discussion. Sometimes silence is the most powerful response. There is also the issue of misplaced loyalty. In moments of frustration, people vent about their family to friends, co-workers, or even online. But what happens when the anger fades? The issue that once seemed overwhelming now feels insignificant, yet others have already formed judgments. You may forgive and move forward, but those you confided in will remember the words you spoke in anger. Their perception of your loved ones remains tainted, even when your own has changed. This creates an invisible divide, a wedge between you and those closest to you, one that may never fully heal. Think about this. Have you ever regretted sharing a family conflict, only to realize later that outside involvement made the situation worse? Maybe someone gave advice based on their own experiences, encouraging resentment instead of resolution. Or worse, your personal matters were shared with others, creating more problems than you originally had. This is why the Stoics emphasized emotional self-control. Sometimes what we don't say is just as important as what we do. So, how should we handle family conflicts the Stoic way? First, practice detachment. When tensions rise, pause. Observe your emotions without reacting impulsively. Ask yourself, Is my response helping or harming the situation? Second, prioritize resolution over validation. Seeking sympathy or agreement from outsiders only fuels division. Focus instead on understanding and compromise within your family. Third, protect your home as a sanctuary. The world does not need to know every difficulty you face. Preserve the integrity of your relationships by keeping them private. Ultimately, the way you handle family matters reflects your personal philosophy. Do you prioritize peace, respect, and wisdom? Or do you let emotions dictate your actions, leading to unnecessary complications? The choice is yours. If you believe in preserving the dignity of personal matters, comment below. I choose wisdom over reaction, because true strength is not in how loudly we speak, but in how wisely we choose our words. 6. Personal fears and weaknesses. There is a raw vulnerability in exposing our fears and weaknesses to the world. While sharing struggles can sometimes foster connection and support, it can also open the door to judgment, manipulation, and even self-doubt. The modern world encourages openness, but the Stoics teach us that discretion is often the wiser path. Not every fear needs an audience, and not every struggle should be displayed for external validation. What we expose can be used against us, and what we internalize can be transformed into strength. Consider the way the world reacts to vulnerability. Some may offer genuine encouragement, but others will see it as an opportunity. They may subtly reinforce your doubts, magnify your insecurities, or use your weaknesses to their advantage. How often have you heard someone say, "Don't worry, I'm sure you'll be fine," yet their tone betrays their lack of faith in you? These reactions, even when unintended, can chip away at your confidence. Marcus Aurelius warned against this when he wrote in Meditations, "The opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if none of them know the truth." Your fears are yours alone to conquer, and external opinions should not dictate your sense of self. This does not mean denying your weaknesses or pretending to be invincible. The Stoics never promoted arrogance, but rather self-mastery. Epictetus emphasized the importance of working on oneself without seeking unnecessary approval. He advised, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." In other words, growth happens internally, away from the noise of public opinion. The more you focus on improving your character, the less you need validation from others. A perfect example of this can be found in the life of a young woman named Emily. She was an aspiring musician, but stage fright plagued her. In an attempt to seek reassurance, she confided in friends, hoping they would encourage her. Instead, their reactions varied. Some dismissed her fears, others reminded her of past failures, and a few subtly questioned her ability. The more she discussed her fear, the stronger it grew, until she started to believe that maybe she wasn't meant for the stage after all. One day, she stumbled upon a Stoic principle that changed her perspective. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. Seneca. She realized that speaking constantly about her fear was feeding it, making it more real than it actually was. Instead of discussing it, she started acting despite it. She practiced, she performed, she stumbled, but she improved. And most importantly, she learned that fear loses its power when you stop giving it attention. This lesson applies to all aspects of life. When you constantly voice your insecurities, you strengthen them. If you repeatedly tell yourself, "I'm not good at public speaking," or "I always mess up under pressure," those words become part of your identity. The brain listens to what you tell it. But if instead you work quietly, improving behind the scenes, your weaknesses start to dissolve. You don't need to declare your fears to conquer them. You need to face them in silence. There is also a strategic element to keeping your weaknesses private. In the competitive nature of life, whether in business, social dynamics, or personal growth, Exposing your vulnerabilities can make you an easy target. People may use your fears to manipulate your decisions, push their own agendas, or diminish your confidence. The Stoics understood this well, which is why they cultivated apatheia, a state of emotional control where external forces cannot shake one's inner stability. True power comes from knowing yourself so well that no one else's opinion can define you. But let's reflect for a moment. Do you often share your fears with others, hoping for reassurance? Has it ever made you feel more vulnerable instead of stronger? If so, consider this. What if, instead of seeking validation, you channeled that energy into silent progress? The next time fear arises, resist the urge to voice it to everyone. Instead, acknowledge it privately, take action despite it, and observe how much stronger you become when you stop feeding it with unnecessary words. So here's a challenge. For the next week, keep your personal doubts to yourself. Work on them in silence. Let your progress be the proof of your strength. And if you agree with this approach, drop a comment below. I choose strength over fear, because true resilience is built not by what you say, but by what you do. 7. Personal opinions on controversial issues. In a world where opinions are thrown around as if they were absolute truths, engaging in discussions about sensitive or controversial topics can be a dangerous game. While open dialogue is essential for progress, the reality is that most debates, especially those held in public or online spaces, are not driven by a genuine pursuit of truth, but by ego, bias, and the need to be right. Sharing your personal stance on divisive issues can lead to conflict, unnecessary stress, and even damage relationships that were once built on mutual respect. The Stoics understood this well. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "You always own the option of having no opinion." Why? Because not every battle is worth fighting. Some discussions, no matter how intellectually stimulating, end in frustration rather than understanding. People often argue not to seek knowledge but to defend their beliefs, and in doing so, they become closed off to alternative perspectives. When you publicly share strong opinions on contentious issues, you risk becoming entangled in emotional disputes that serve no higher purpose. Instead of finding resolution, you may find yourself exhausted, mentally, emotionally, and even socially. But does this mean you should remain silent on everything? Not necessarily. There is a difference between being well-informed and being combative. Seneca advised, "Time discovers truth." Sometimes the wisest approach is to observe, reflect, and wait rather than impulsively react. If a discussion is unlikely to bring clarity or growth, is it worth your peace of mind? Ask yourself this: will engaging in this debate lead to positive change, or will it only fuel more division? The Stoic approach is simple: speak when necessary, but not to provoke. Listen more than you argue. Seek understanding, not victory. Consider the story of Daniel, a highly respected professional who had always been vocal about political and social issues. He believed in using his voice for change, and while his intentions were noble, he often found himself entangled in heated arguments, both online and in person. His discussions rarely led to meaningful conclusions. Instead, they resulted in strained friendships, professional tensions, and personal frustration. One day, after a particularly exhausting debate, a mentor told him, "You don't have to fight every battle. Your energy is limited. Spend it where it truly matters." That advice changed everything. Daniel started practicing restraint. Instead of impulsively jumping into debates, he chose his conversations wisely. He learned that silence is sometimes more powerful than words, and that true influence comes not from endless arguing, but from leading by example. As his emotional energy was no longer drained by unnecessary disputes, he became more productive, more composed, and more focused on meaningful contributions to the world. Now, think about your own life. Have you ever been pulled into a heated debate only to regret the time and energy spent? Have you ever felt frustrated after trying to convince someone of your perspective only to realize that their mind was already made up? If so, you are not alone. The modern world thrives on outrage. Social media, news cycles, and even casual conversations often push us into reactive states, tempting us to defend, argue, and prove ourselves. But the truth is, not every battle is worth fighting. Instead of engaging in fruitless debates, consider redirecting your focus toward what you can control. If you care deeply about an issue, take action rather than wasting words. Support causes that align with your values. Lead by example. Most importantly, protect your peace. The Stoics teach us that inner tranquility is a far greater prize than the temporary satisfaction of proving someone wrong. So, ask yourself, do you often feel drained after engaging in discussions about controversial topics? Do you find yourself reacting emotionally instead of responding with wisdom? If so, consider this challenge. Before you engage in your next debate, pause. Ask yourself whether the conversation is truly worth your energy. If not, walk away. Observe instead of reacting. Listen instead of arguing. And if you agree with this Stoic principle, comment below. I choose peace over pointless debates. Let's see how many of us are willing to protect our focus and direct our energy toward what truly matters. 8. Personal health information. Our health is one of the most intimate aspects of our lives, deeply personal yet incredibly vulnerable when exposed to the world. Sharing too much about health conditions, whether minor or serious, often invites unwanted sympathy, excessive concern, or even judgment. While we may seek support, oversharing can shift focus away from resilience and toward external validation. Instead of empowering us, it can become a constant reminder of our struggles, making it harder to move forward. The Stoics emphasized self-reliance and dignity in the face of hardship. Epictetus, who lived with physical limitations, stated, "We should not moan and complain about what is beyond our control, but rather accept it with dignity." This wisdom reminds us that while it is natural to seek comfort, constantly broadcasting our health struggles shifts our focus from strength to dependency on others' reactions. Rather than dwelling on what cannot be changed, Stoicism teaches us to direct our energy toward what we can influence, our mindset, habits, and daily actions. Consider the story of Anna, a young woman diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder. Initially, she shared her journey with friends and colleagues, hoping for understanding. But soon she noticed how differently people treated her. Some avoided conversations out of fear of saying the wrong thing, while others overwhelmed her with unsolicited advice. What began as an attempt to connect became a burden, as she found herself constantly defined by her condition. Realizing this, Anna chose a different path. She focused on maintaining a healthy lifestyle, confiding only in those she deeply trusted. In doing so, she reclaimed control over her life. Her condition remained a part of her, but it no longer dictated how others perceived her. Why do we feel compelled to share personal health struggles so openly? For many, it's a way to seek comfort, process emotions, or feel seen. However, Marcus Aurelius reminds us, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." True resilience comes from within. While seeking medical advice or support from loved ones is essential, publicizing personal health matters often invites unnecessary concern, speculation, or even gossip, none of which contribute to healing. That being said, keeping health private does not mean suffering in silence. There is a balance between selective sharing and complete isolation, seeking guidance from doctors, confiding in close family, or being transparent with those who need to know, such as employers, are necessary steps. But exposing health struggles to acquaintances, co-workers, or social media often shifts the narrative from strength to victimhood. Oversharing can create an identity centered around illness rather than empowerment. Think about your own experiences. Have you ever shared a personal health concern only to regret it later? Have you seen someone else's struggles become the defining factor of how others treat them? If so, consider this. Instead of making health challenges a public discussion, what if you used that energy to strengthen yourself? What if you focused on solutions rather than sympathy? The next time you feel the urge to share a health concern, pause. Ask yourself, am I sharing this for a constructive reason, or am I seeking validation? Will this conversation empower me, or will it invite unnecessary anxiety? The answer will often lead you to silence, and in that silence, you will find control. Now, let's reflect together. What are your thoughts on keeping personal health information private? Have you experienced situations where oversharing led to unintended consequences? If this resonates with you, comment below. I choose to focus on strength, not sympathy. Let's embrace the Stoic mindset and take full ownership of our well-being. 9. Workplace conflicts and career plans. Your career is one of the most important aspects of your life, yet sharing too much about it can invite unnecessary complications. The workplace is not just a space for progress. It is a competitive environment where ambitions, politics, and personal interests collide. Disclosing your career plans or workplace conflicts can expose you to rivalry, unexpected obstacles, or even subtle sabotage. Many professionals believe that openly discussing their ambitions will earn them support, mentorship, or recognition. However, once your goals become public knowledge, expectations shift, competition intensifies, and others may use your plans to their advantage. The Stoics, who valued self-mastery, would caution against this. Epictetus wisely said, "If you wish to improve, be content to appear clueless or stupid in extraneous matters." In other words, not everything needs to be shared, especially in environments where personal ambitions can be weaponized. Consider Nathan, a talented software engineer with aspirations for leadership. Excited about his vision, he openly shared his plans with colleagues, expecting encouragement. Instead, he noticed subtle changes. Collaborations turned into quiet rivalries, and opportunities that once seemed within reach were suddenly redirected elsewhere. His openness made him a target, and before he realized it, external forces influenced his career trajectory. Nathan's experience is not unique. The workplace is full of opportunities but also of strategic maneuvering. Discussing promotions, career moves, or entrepreneurial ambitions too soon exposes you to others' insecurities, opinions, and agendas, factors you cannot control. Instead of announcing intentions, the Stoic approach is to let actions speak louder than words. Marcus Aurelius, who led an empire through crisis, never wasted energy proving himself through talk. He wrote, "Do not waste what remains of your life in speculating about your neighbors. Look within." The lesson is simple. Your career is your responsibility. The more you guard your plans, the more control you maintain. If you want a promotion, let your performance make the case. If you're transitioning industries, prepare behind the scenes. If you're launching a business, build the foundation before making announcements. The less you reveal, the fewer obstacles you create for yourself. And what about workplace conflicts? Disagreements are inevitable, but how you handle them defines your growth. The Stoics taught that external events are neither good nor bad, Only our perception of them shapes their impact. Seneca wrote, "A wise man is content with his lot, whatever it may be, without wishing for what he has not." Office politics, unfair treatment, or difficult colleagues are beyond your control. However, your response to them is within your power. Engaging in office drama, reacting emotionally, or venting frustrations only escalates the situation. Instead, remain composed, diplomatic, and focused on long-term success rather than short-term validation. Now, reflect for a moment. Do you openly discuss your career plans at work? Have you ever experienced unintended consequences because of it? Have you engaged in workplace disputes only to regret what you shared? If you're ready to take a stoic approach, protecting your plans, avoiding unnecessary conflicts, and letting your results speak for themselves, drop a comment below. I choose to focus on my work, not the noise around me. Success isn't about announcing your ambitions. It's about disciplined action. Let's embrace this mindset and move forward with quiet, unstoppable progress. Take a moment to ask yourself, are you truly in control of your life, or are you letting it be shaped by the judgments, expectations, and interference of others? In an era where personal information is so easily exposed, where people feel entitled to know everything about you, choosing what to keep private is not just a preference, but a necessity. The Stoics understood this long before social media, before the endless sharing, before the illusion that external validation equals fulfillment. True autonomy begins the moment you decide what stays within you and what is shared with the world. What you reveal can become what binds you. A goal spoken too soon can be derailed before it even begins. A personal struggle made public can be turned against you. A fear exposed to the wrong person can make you vulnerable. The strongest people are not those who broadcast every thought, plan, or hardship. They are those who master the art of silence, wielding it like a shield. Silence is not weakness, it is ultimate control. Marcus Aurelius himself lived by this principle, reminding us that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Guard your thoughts, protect your words, and choose carefully what you let out into the world. Now, it's time to take action. Look at your own life. Is there something you've been sharing too much? Is there a part of your peace you need to reclaim? Make the commitment today. Drop a comment below. I choose to protect my peace. If this message resonated with you, hit like, share it with those who need to hear this, and most importantly, subscribe now, because this is just the beginning of your journey towards self-mastery. The path to true power starts with what you choose to keep to yourself.